Hi everyone, welcome back to the processes in the project management body of knowledge. This one is an overview of our project scope management knowledge area. As you can see, it fits second. So if we're going along in our project, first of all, we're integrating all of the project items. So that's an overarching theme. But then we're starting with our scope. Then we're going into our schedule. Then we're going into our cost. And then we're going into our quality and testing. Then we're gathering resources, we're communicating to those resources, and then we're managing the risks associated with all of these things. And then we might need procurement for any items that we can't fulfill ourselves, and then managing stakeholders as a general theme across the whole project as well. As you can see, with project scope management, it really is one of the first things that we need to do as part of our project because we need to understand what we are going to be delivering. The project scope management processes, therefore, are plan scope management. We're planning the overall approach. Then we're collecting the requirements from our customer or whoever we're delivering the project to. Then we're defining the scope from those requirements. Then we're creating the work breakdown structure. So from the scope, what are the activities that we need to do to make that scope happen and actually create the project and create the project deliverables. Then, once we've delivered them, as you can see, there's nothing in executing. So executing the project work happens outside of this knowledge group. But once we have executed all of those deliverables, we need to validate that scope. So the customer needs to say, yes, this is the right specifications, and they're accepting those deliverables. And then we also need to control scope. So we need to make sure that it stays on track. Is it what we wanted to deliver? Does it need to change? If it needs to change, we might need a change request as noted in our change management plan. And so those are all the processes as part of project scope management. There are a lot of inputs, tools and techniques and outputs that you'll see as well. The project charter comes up a lot for all of these particular ones. And of course, the project management plan is an input into all of these processes as well. You'll also see a lot of enterprise environmental factors and organizational process assets as an input into project scope. And of course, expert judgment, you'll see a lot of as well. Look at all of those for all of the processes there. You'll also see decision making, a lot of decision making, and decomposition is one of those things that we need for the work breakdown structure where we're decomposing large features into smaller and smaller parts, or activities that we can actually perform. You'll see decision making come up again, and of course things like inspection, when we're inspecting those deliverables and making sure that they are as we wanted them to be, and some data analysis as well to make sure that we are on track. Key concepts for project scope management, we've got the term scope. Now this can refer to two things. We've got the product scope. This is the features and functions that characterize a product, service, or result. Typically what we are delivering, the product. So what is the scope of the product? Now we can also have the project scope. This is the work that we're performing to deliver that product, service, or result, and the specified features and functions. So this can of course include the product scope. So project scope is the work performed, so what work are we doing? But the product itself is what are we delivering? Trends and emerging practices in project scope management. There is a greater focus on requirements in today's projects, specifically with the rise of the business analyst role. So it's more prominent in defining, managing and controlling those requirements as you go along in your project. That means as a project manager, you'll probably have to work with a business analyst to determine problems, the original problem that you're trying to fix, and identify those business needs, so gathering those requirements. Identify and recommend viable solutions for meeting those needs. And then elicit, document and manage stakeholder requirements out of all of that in order to meet the business and project objectives. And of course, facilitate the successful implementation of the product, the service or the end result of the program or the project. Tailoring considerations that you might come across for project scope management. Because each project is unique, the project manager will need to tailor the way project scope management process is applied for your particular project. So considerations for tailoring might include the validation or control aspects. the development approach. So how are we actually going to work as a project? Is it a waterfall method? Is it an agile method? The stability of the requirements. Now that's a big one. Are the requirements subject to change? Do we know if they're going to change a lot, or do we have an indication of that? Maybe if it is going to change a lot, it's better to use an agile approach, which is much better in the face of changing requirements. And of course, any governance or things that might be existing, templates, tools, ways of work. If you're working with a project management office or with a functional manager, the approach will be very, very different. So make sure you understand the existing governance in place for that particular organization that you're working in. Considerations for agile or adaptive environments for project scope management. So in projects with evolving requirements, as we saw, if they're subject to change, or with high risk or significant uncertainty, the scope is often not understood at the very beginning of the project, and it evolves over the life cycle of the project itself. So agile methods deliberately spend less time trying to define and agree on scope in the early stage of the project and spend more time establishing the process for its ongoing discovery and refinement. So this will include a few things. We call it rolling wave planning, where we are defining a high-level idea up front, and then only as we get to each, let's say these are iterations here of 2 to 4 weeks, and we're delivering something for each of these iterations. So then we'll plan in detail just before that iteration. And we'll plan in more detail. So at first, we have a high-level idea, maybe a single feature or a few features, and then as we get closer to delivering that work, we plan it in much more detail. That's rolling wave planning. And it's also similar to the agile approach, where we've got these iterations and we put that item, we plan the sprint, which is similar to an iteration, and we put that work as we've planned it out into the backlog, and then we get it done. And that is the overview of project scope management.